Will the Nikon Z8 be closer in terms of design to that of the Z6 Mark II or the Z7 Mark II? Or will it have a form factor very similar to that of a DSLR released back in 2017, the D850? I know you're as curious as me, so let's get right to the information. But first, please do me a favor. Follow me on Twitter, subscribe, share all notifications, like, comment, and all that great stuff. It's greatly appreciated, means a lot to me, and it really does help this channel grow. This past weekend, we were debating the size of the Nikon Z8 on a live stream hosted by AP Studios. Nikon Rumours had just updated their specs on the Nikon Z8, saying it would have a similar form factor to the Nikon Z6 Mark II or the Nikon Z7 Mark II. And the vast majority of us on that live stream hosted by AP Studios said, yeah, the Z6 Mark II and the Z7 Mark II are a little bit too small for a camera that's supposed to, well, be a mini Z9, a camera that's supposed to be able to do 8K video, should be able to shoot 20 frames per second, that has the exact same sensor and image processor as the Z9. You see, if we take a look at the actual dimensions of that camera, and I've got them right here, the Z7 has the dimensions of, and these are in millimeters, 134 by 100.5 by 69.5. Now let's compare this to the Canon EOS R5, 138 by 97.5, so there we're pretty similar, by 88 millimeters, 88 versus 69.5 millimeters, and that's a huge difference. You probably remember when the Canon EOS R5 was announced, well, at least you remember all the hoopla about it. This camera that could shoot 8K raw video, but all the news about the overheating. There was so much information, so many stories. You could put this camera in a fridge, a freezer, and it wouldn't help it cool down any longer. You could be shooting stills, shooting photos, do it for maybe 20 minutes or so, switch over to video, and the camera was automatically shutting down because it was already overheating without shooting any video. And that camera has a larger dimension, larger sizes, so I really thought this is a bit of a problem. If the Nikon Z8 has a smaller body like the Z6 Mark II or the Z7 Mark II, this really throws into doubt what the capabilities of this camera would be, which is why I posited saying that, yeah, I don't believe it. I think this camera is going to be larger, more akin to the size of the Canon EOS R5 than the Nikon Z6 Mark II or the Nikon Z7 Mark II. Well, Nikon Rumours just updated their specs just a few hours ago. I received some information that the height and length of the Nikon Z8 will be approximately identical to the Nikon D850. Of course, being a mirrorless camera, the Nikon Z8 will be thinner or slimmer than the D850. And this is good news. The D850 is definitely bigger. Now, it's actually closer to the Canon EOS R3 than the R5, but I think this is more of a plus. We definitely don't want to have this camera similar in size to the Z6 or Z7 Mark II. So let's take a look at the dimensions. Again, the dimensions for the Canon EOS R5 haven't changed. They're 138 by 97.5 by 88 millimeters. And the D850, considerably bigger, 146 versus 138 on the R5 by 124 versus 97.5 by 78.5. So definitely a much bigger body. So that's good news because remember, according to Nikon Rumours, we're going to have the exact same sensor as in the Nikon Z9, so that's a 45.7 megapixel sensor. It's also a stacked sensor, and I wouldn't be surprised if we have the exact same XP7 image processor in there, because if we can use more components from the Nikon Z9 and bring them into this camera, it's certainly going to help with affordability. And I know some people are saying, well, wait a minute, Simon, here, hold on a minute here. If they just take the same sensor and the image processor of the Nikon Z9, well, who's going to buy the Z9? It doesn't make any sense. To take that same engine, that same image processor, it doesn't make any sense. Well, let me use an analogy, for example. 97% of this channel are men, so if we use the car analogy, I think this will really kind of sink in a little bit here. Here in North America, General Motors is one of the largest car companies, and they make engines, they make transmissions, they make cars, trucks, and many other automobiles. Now, there's one engine that's very, very popular, and it goes into trucks. I think it's a 6.2 liter. It's a really big, heavy-duty engine, but they also take that same exact engine and put it in a Corvette. But these vehicles are completely different. A truck is meant for hauling. It's a much bigger vehicle, and yes, it has decent performance, but it's not about racing around the track. It's not about performance. It's not about lateral G-forces like the Corvette is. A Corvette can do around 315 kilometers an hour, or around 200 miles an hour. It's a very, very fast car, very different, yet it's got the exact same engine. You see where I'm getting at? You can have the exact same engine in a camera, like what's in the Nikon Z9, that 45.7 megapixel sensor, and you can put it in the Z8, but it can have very different capabilities. Let's just imagine they have the same frames per second, 20 frames per second, but let's even assume that they bump it up to 30 frames per second. It doesn't mean it's going to be better than the Nikon Z9, because the Nikon Z9 is all about performance. Let's use that Corvette analogy. It's going to have a much larger buffer. It's going to have a much faster buffer. So while the Nikon Z9 is limited right now to 20 frames per second lossless RAW, that's 1.2 gigabytes per second. If you hold down that shutter button with the fastest CF Express Type B card right now, I think it's an Angelbird at 1.48 gigabytes per second, you can hold it down until you fill up the card, no problems. Nikon Z8, I can guarantee you if you hold down that shutter button with the same CF Express card at 20 frames per second, it's going to start to buffer after a while. This Z8 is going to be performance tuned down from the Nikon Z9. So again, going back to the design, the form factor of this camera, the Nikon Z8, and why I'm doing a video just on this bit of information alone is significant, because that larger body means that it can do 8K video, whether it can do Nikon RAW, whether it can do all-I, it can do it at 30 frames per second, it could even do it at 60 frames per second without worrying about overheating, being able to do that unlimited. And in terms of stills, well, 20 frames per second lossless RAW at 1.2 gigabytes per second, it can do that as well. And maybe it can even do 120 frames per second at 11 megapixels, depending on how you choose to have this camera set up. The Nikon Z9 introduced many different frame rates. For social media, 11 megapixels is pretty good. And to be able to shoot at 120 frames per second, that's just absolutely incredible without any rolling shutter. And we're seeing this with more and more cameras as we have faster image processors, faster sensors, stacked sensors. What we're seeing, in a case in point with the Canon EOS R6 Mark II, at 40 frames per second, it's able to do very well. And Fronos just did a video on this camera a couple of weeks back showing that even shooting sports, you really can't see any bending, you can't see any rolling shutter. There was a few examples where he showed a tennis ball where it was just slightly elliptical. And if you were just a regular person watching Sports Illustrated or some other sports magazine, and you were looking at that photo, you probably wouldn't have noticed the difference. But the images were absolutely incredible. You saw people playing basketball, and he was holding down the shutter at 40 frames per second. He only got a second, but 40 frames per second, and he was anywhere between 41 and 43 frames per second. And even if their face only took up a tiny part of the frame shooting with a 70 to 200 f2, their eyes were locked in focus, and the results were very good. Fronos was very, very impressed with the R8, and that 40 frames per second. And this is not a video about the Canon EOS R8. It's to show that when you have the right sensor and the right image processor, anything's possible. And I'm super excited by this Nikon Z8 new form factor. I don't think it's going to be as big as the D850. I think it's going to be slimmed down a little bit more. And I think if you take a look at the Canon EOS R5 and its dimensions, I think it's going to be closer to the size and that form factor. Maybe a little bit bigger, but I think that's more of a form factor, and that's what we need for a camera of this caliber, something that can easily dissipate heat whether you're in stills or video. And if you can't get enough about the Nikon Z8, then I highly recommend tuning in every Wednesday and Saturday to AB Studio's live panel broadcast talking about all things Nikon, but they're panels made up of not just Nikon users. I was on it this weekend, and I'm a Canon shooter, but also Sony shooters, Pentax shooters, OM systems. It's a community that's dedicated to talking about all cameras, and right now one of the biggest things that's on the agenda is the Nikon Z8, so I highly recommend checking in Wednesday night. I don't know what the time is Wednesday. I know on Saturday it's 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and also give Chuck a subscribe. He's just about 60 subscribers away from that monetization mark of reaching 1,000 subscribers. It's a really big, really big milestone, because at that point, he actually now starts to get revenue from YouTube that he can use for reinvesting into his channel. And if you want to stay up to date on all the latest camera news and rumors, I highly recommend subscribing to this channel and choosing all notifications. And by choosing all notifications, as soon as I publish a new video like this one here, well, you'll get notified by YouTube so long as it's not showing up in your spam and junk folder, so make sure you check it out there. And for all the minor news and rumors, I highly recommend following me on Twitter, because I can post as many as, well, up to 10 tweets a day sometimes. Normally I don't do more than that, but you'd be surprised with all the lenses coming out, all the new camera bodies, rumors, pictures, all the works. There's an awful lot of stuff coming out, and usually they're not big enough to do a video. So in that case, I go ahead and tweet them out. So I highly recommend following me on Twitter. But that's it for now. It's late. I need to get this video out, get up early, because we're expecting something from Canon, or at least Canon Rumours. But that's it for now. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you again soon.